Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating turnarounds in modern financial history. We're looking at JP Morgan Chase. Now, historically, this is an institution that grappled with some massive, multi-billion-dollar vulnerabilities. But, as we'll see, they managed to engineer a complete operational pivot. They essentially morphed from a bank weighed down by its own massive blind spots into this unstoppable, AI-driven digital apex predator. Let's get right into it.
$6.2 billion. Yeah, let that number sink in for a second. That was the total trading loss from the infamous 2012 London whale crisis. It's a staggering figure, but it perfectly highlights the incredibly high stakes of human error in global banking. I mean, when you're managing literally trillions of dollars, a single blind spot in a human-led risk management chain doesn't just cost you a few million bucks, it costs billions.
And the bank's leadership didn't sugarcoat this failure at all. Chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon flat out described the strategy that led to the loss as flawed, complex, poorly reviewed, poorly executed, and poorly monitored. He really hit the nail on the head there. Historically, banking at this immense scale suffered from massive information asymmetry. The institution simply could not see what its own completely separate parts were doing in real time, and that created some incredibly dangerous operational blind spots.
Okay, part one, crises and blind spots.
Let's rewind a little bit to the 2008 financial crisis. On a Thursday in March, Bear Stearns realized, suddenly, that it wouldn't be able to renew its liabilities by Friday. To avoid a Friday morning bankruptcy, a $12.9 billion overnight bridge loan from the Federal Reserve had to be routed through JP Morgan. This illustrates a truly terrifying reality of modern finance. Liquidity can just vanish overnight. And traditional banking infrastructure, which relied heavily on human analysts and fragmented data, struggled immensely to assess those kinds of cascading, real-time systemic risks.
But that systemic blindness, it reared its ugly head again inside JP Morgan's own walls just 4 years later. Let's look at the timeline of this crisis. So in February 2012, outside hedge funds start noticing unusual credit default swap activity. By April, CEO Jamie Dimon is still calling it a tempest in a teapot because they were totally unaware of the true scale. Then, in May, boom, they announce a $2 billion loss. Fast forward to July, and it explodes to $6.2 billion. It shows you exactly how a human-led risk management system totally failed to grasp the scale of a single rogue trader's bets until it was way too late.
Which brings us to Section 2, the $10 billion pivot.
Now look at the sheer contrast in these numbers. This wasn't just some standard technology upgrade, this was an all-out AI arms race. JP Morgan poured over $10.6 billion into AI investments. They deployed 500 dedicated data scientists and filed over 120 AI patents. Compare that to a massive competitor like Citigroup, who spent $4.3 billion and had only 70 dedicated researchers. JP Morgan didn't just invest, they aggressively outspent the competition to build this impenetrable automated AI fortress.
So, what exactly did they buy with all that cash? Well, let's introduce the first major tech upgrade, COIN, which stands for Contract Intelligence. Basically, it's an AI system designed to rapidly analyze payment documents and invoices. Instead of armies of human auditors manually cross-referencing papers to sniff out fraud, which, is a slow, highly error-prone process, machine learning took the wheel. It detects subtle fraudulent patterns before a single dollar is ever released.
To really understand this, let's look at the staggering contrast between human limits and this AI system. COIN processes 12,000 documents every single second. It slashed their annual audit times by 360,000 person-hours. And most importantly, it dropped the commercial payment fraud error rate from 3% down to roughly 1%. You literally just cannot hire enough humans to achieve that kind of flawless speed and scale.
And the financial impact? Completely immediate. In just his first year of operation, the COIN system saved the bank $150 million simply by catching fraudulent invoices early. That is a massive, tangible return on investment from effectively cutting a human bottleneck right out of the loop.
Moving right along to Section 3, Next-Gen Risk Management.
Sure, preventing invoice fraud is great, but what about the massive, firm-wide risks that caused that 2012 London whale disaster? Enter Catana Lens. This platform is basically the antidote to that specific problem. It centralizes 800 daily data sources from all across the firm. It uses over 50 machine learning models to constantly, tirelessly scan for anomalies. And the results are wild. It successfully flagged 90% of arising issues within 7 days, and it reduced losses from materializing issues by 42%. It finally gave managers the exact real-time visibility they were so desperately lacking back in 2012, saving over $500 million in a single year.
But this AI evolution isn't just about playing defense. It's heavily about playing offense, too. In 2022, by integrating deep reinforcement learning into their trading algorithms, JP Morgan achieved an 8.7% return. That definitively pushed them past heavyweights like Barclays at 7.2% and Goldman Sachs at 6.5%. Let's break down the anatomy of what this new digital trade actually looks like. Through AI-optimized order routing, latency was slashed from 50 milliseconds to under 5 milliseconds, and because of that, their win rates jumped from 52% to 63%. The algorithms are out there capitalizing on incredibly fleeting market opportunities faster than you or I could even blink.
All right, Section 4, the First Republic Stress Test.
Fast forward to March 2023. The regional banking sector is facing a severe crisis of confidence, and First Republic Bank suffers a massive, ultimately fatal bank run. This was fueled by a classic maturity mismatch. They were holding long-term, low-interest loans in an environment where interest rates were rapidly rising. Plus, they had a highly unstable base of uninsured deposits, so when panic set in, their liquidity basically vanished in a matter of days.
So the FDIC desperately needed a buyer to step in and prevent a wider systemic collapse. And this is exactly where JP Morgan's tech investments paid off spectacularly. Utilizing their advanced, AI-driven data systems, JP Morgan was able to execute lightning-fast due diligence. They weren't just guessing, they algorithmically assessed $153 billion in First Republic's loans in mere days. That allowed them to confidently submit a winning, FDIC-backed bid over the course of a single weekend.
And looking at the numbers beautifully illustrates the ultimate triumph of that acquisition. Between December 2022 and December 2023, after swallowing First Republic whole, JP Morgan's total assets leaped from roughly $3.6 trillion to over $3.8 trillion. Their total equity surged by over $35 billion. Their shiny new digital systems allowed them to digest a massive failing competitor incredibly smoothly and safely. And the specific financial victories of this deal, absolutely textbook. That efficient post-merger integration added $370 million to net interest income and brought in $280 million in immediate bargain purchase gains. Overall, the acquisition contributed over 8% to JP Morgan's total net income, all while rapidly expanding their reach into high-net-worth wealth management. It was an incredibly profitable maneuver, entirely made possible by digital agility.
Which leads us to our final section, the future of finance. So JP Morgan Chase essentially took the painful lessons of its past and used them to build this sprawling, automated nervous system, one that can sense risk, catch fraud, and execute trades in milliseconds. But it leaves us with a really provocative question to ponder. As these AI algorithms process millions of data points autonomously, managing trillions of dollars, is the era of the human rogue trader finally over? Or, by handing the keys over to these incredibly complex neural networks, are we just building faster, smarter black boxes? It's a fascinating question for the future of our financial ecosystem. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.